Well, that's a fun way to open up the season, wasn't it? Tim Maiden, Patrick Herbert from Black Sheep Diaries here to break down Penn State's 38-15 win over West Virginia. Pat, how about that Drew Allar kid, huh?
So much to unpack. So much to unpack. I'm trying to let myself, settle in here, not say everything all at once because I could probably talk for an hour and a half. But yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game. I just don't even know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm excited. Drew Allure is. Many people are saying that Drew Allure is him, and he certainly looked like him. What are your takeaways? I guess first and foremost, Penn State wins 38-15. Weird game, but I guess we can start with Drew Allure. I mean, we can get into everything at some point. But what were your thoughts on Drew? I'm curious.
I mean, it's just a hell of a performance. I'm going to be putting together the position grades post maybe like after we're done with the show, or maybe when I wake up tomorrow morning. But he is definitely going to get an A from me. The quarterback will get an A grade. Little spoiler alert for those who anticipate in the position grades posts. But he's I mean, just I couldn't have asked for more. I mean, you see the stat line is ticking across the bottom there: 325 yards, 3 touchdowns. There's one obviously. He almost threw a pick in the end zone in the first hit, which it kind of got negated by the fact that Penn State biffed on another easy field goal anyway.
Yeah.
But we'll get into about special teams, but let's keep it positive for now. But just the vision, the pocket awareness, the arm strength, the accuracy. I mean, that first touchdown throw to Keandre Lambert-Smith. I mean, not too many other quarterbacks make that throw besides him. I mean, Sean Clifford probably doesn't even try to throw that one. He probably just takes off and runs, probably for a huge game, but may not be going for a touchdown. But that was just incredible.
Yeah.
And he just looked poised out there, especially because West Virginia brought constant pressure, it seemed. I mean, he was constantly having to, step up in the pocket or roll out, so it was, he showed real poise under pressure. And, you give him more than a couple seconds, he will dump it off to somebody. And even when they did get to him, actually, he did a very good job of just throwing the ball away without drawing an intentional grounding penalty, instead of just taking the sack and live to fight another down. That's another thing that really stuck out to me. But I couldn't have asked for any better for his first ever start. I mean, that was a dream start for him, really. What about
you? To be nitpicky, because I'll start off, I guess, with negative, right? I guess you kind of wish that down the red zone they were a little bit cleaner, and that's more than Drew, right? Because even at the end, Dante Cephas drops what probably would have been a touchdown. And then I think it was Trey Wallace, right? Yeah, Trey Wallace drops, which I'd have to go back and look at the replay, but I think he probably gets in as well on first and second down, and then they run on third, have to take the field goal. Obviously, they stalled a couple other times for what you would hope would be pretty chip shot field goals. We can get into that a little bit later on, but so I guess if you want to nitpick, right, kind of down and close, the offense kind of stalled, and maybe Drew wasn't as perfect as we would hope for. Like he said, in the second quarter, he probably is, I think, by far his worst throw of the game. Where if Keandre Lambert-Smith doesn't turn to a defensive back there, he throws an interception. But yeah, I mean, like everybody is saying, you cannot ask for more. And I think that first series where he throws to Keandre Lambert-Smith, and I don't know about everybody else, but I was kind of yelling, just run with it. Just run, right? I think there was more. I thought that watching the play live, I thought that he had more of a running lane than he actually did. I actually don't know if he would have got too many yards, but it just felt like, right, like how many quarterbacks on the run like that are able to make that play, make that throw, and was kind of the story of the entire night. Penn State receivers definitely were open, so there weren't a ton of necessarily, I don't say difficult throws, because as me as Penn State fans, I don't mean to do this as a slight to Sean Clifford, but right, sometimes even throws that are on the easier side can look a little difficult, but Drew's arm is just, flick of the wrist, and it fires out there, and it gets there perfectly timed, and he sees the field so well, and he anticipates so. I think that's the thing, right? It's easy for us when a wide receiver makes the catch and they don't really have anybody around them, but Drew is kind of reading that before it completely opens up and everything is happening, and yeah, trying to not get too ahead of ourselves as far as what he can be and what he is, but that was really really impressive, and yeah, I'm excited. What did you think about the wide receiver play overall? Kendra Lambert Smith obviously had a couple touchdowns. Trey Wallace was involved. But what were kind of your takeaways as far as the guys helping Drew?
I thought wide receiver play was very good too. I'm going to give them a high grade as well. I was going to give them an A grade until those couple of drops on that drive in the field goal by Cephas and Wallace. You can't do that. Those were well thrown balls by Drew. I mean, you gotta catch that, take it to the end zone. That should have been a series that ended with a touchdown. But other than that, I mean, solid night. How about Liam Clifford, little Cliff, strutting his stuff out there? He's one of those guys. He's not a speedster, but he just finds ways to get open, like find the hole in the defense and just get open, make the catch, get you some yards of the catch to move the chains. I mean, nothing flashy about him, but you need a guy or two like that in your receiving core. And, he's also a reliable set of hands. And then shout out to Malik McLean.
Very nice game.
We have really forgotten about since he joined the team, but he stepped up tonight. Had some nice catches. Of course, he had one for a touchdown. So when all the hype was on Dante Cephas, who had a nice catch himself, which set up that field goal, but Malik McLean, out of the two transfer receivers, he definitely had the better night, I would say. But of course, going forward, you hope both those guys can be real assets. But I think to your broader point, Pat, my concerns about the receivers were definitely erased after this performance tonight. Now, obviously, I have some other concerns, mostly on the defensive side of the ball, which we'll get into soon enough. But yeah, receivers really impressive, and tight ends. It's maybe my one criticism of the offense, and that's kind of more maybe a play calling thing. But I would have liked to have seen Mike Yurcich utilize the tight ends more, like more targets for Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren. I know they do a great job, like for that diamond formation, using them as run blockers, especially, or so it's being utilized in that sense. But I like to see them be more utilized as pass catchers too. So hopefully we see some of that down the line. Maybe it didn't want to reveal everything in tonight. I don't know. I'm sure Yurchich's got a lot more tricks up his sleeve like that. But that O-line play was good enough. There were times where I just remember Caden Wallace blocking absolutely nobody as untouched linebacker kind of went by and just sacked Drew. And, they were a little shaky maybe with pass protection, but or at least picking up the blitzers. But, run blocking wise, they were fine. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen both had good games. Maybe not like, anything super flashy, but they helped consistently move the chains. Singleton reached the end zone once. They were efficient. That's all you needed on a night when Allar was just slinging it across the yard. So overall, good night for the offense. Of course, those two missed field goals. I think we can maybe talk a bit more. Before we dive into defense, do you want to just talk about special teams and that work in progress, namely the field goal kicking game? It looks like maybe it's now Alex Felkins' job to lose. I do feel sorry for Sanders Sahadak. As someone who was at the 2012 UVA game where Sam Ficken missed all those field goals and the extra point, I hope maybe Sam gets in touch with him and tries to give him some reassurance. But we kind of knew going into the season that special teams was an unknown, And kickoffs were actually good. Gabe Nwosu put all of his kickoffs in the end zone, so good on him. Caden Saunders, had sure hands when catching punts, no muffs. Although he made a mistake fair catching the first punt. He fielded like around his own 5-yard line. Should have let that one bounce. But, I chalked that up to a freshman mistake. The kicking game definitely some work. Punting, that was kind of an adventure too. Wasn't the most impressive. Pat, what your thoughts about special teams? I'm sure you got some of those as well.
Yeah. I guess I echo your comments as far as Sanders to Haydak. You can't be missing kicks inside of 40 yards. And in something I wrote this week for BlackShoeDiaries.com, I'd said, just give me a field goal kicker that can make inside 40, right? If you're Penn State, yes, of course, push came to shove, or if you really want to, have everything in the world, we would, of course, would have an elite field goal kicker that could, be, somebody that's a threat out to, 50, 55 yards. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at this team heading into the season, knowing what kind of is their kicker, you just hope that they're consistent on the easy ones, which I'd have to look at what Sanders Sahadak miss a 34-yarder, and I want to say a 37 or 38. So very, makeable field goals. And that second one, that was a 34-yarder, was, right down the middle. Like you couldn't have, obviously kickers kind of have their preference for where they want to kick, but that's a gimme shot. And, it comes back to, it's such a mental game for kickers. And he obviously wasn't able to step up to the plate tonight. And Alex Falcons came in and he had some extra points and 25-yarder, which are, again, chip shots. But at the very least, with kind of that aura and that atmosphere in the stadium of probably people on the edge of their seats seeing the field goal team came in, Falcons transfer from Columbia, the Ivy League school, not the country, made the kick. So yeah, I do think moving forward, that was a tight job to begin with, that we'll see Falcons and Zahadak. The one thing I do want to say, though, just going back to the receivers and kind of the skill positions in general, was that, I was surprised that we only got one catch from a tight end. That was Tyler Warren for 9 yards. Nothing from Theo Johnson, who I predicted would lead Penn State in receptions this season. So that is off to a boiling hot start for myself. But I, once again, would have to take a look back and kind of rewatch the game and see some more, in-depth stats. But it did feel like a lot of what Drew was doing was out on the, outside the hash marks, which, I think for tight ends, that's a little bit more, they're getting their offense more down the middle. So I'm curious if maybe West Virginia kind of went into this game saying, don't let Drew kind of beat you over the middle. Let's see if he can, rely on that rocket arm that he has and beat you on the outside. But I'm sure we'll have games where, Theo Johnson or Tyler Warren are going to have, 10 catches combined and stuff like that. But tonight just kind of wasn't the night. Overall happy offensively. I thought, offensive line kind of broke down here and there as far as pass protection, but they did a decent enough job. And Drew certainly did a good enough job, getting around in the pocket. Running game was what it needed to be as far as, Singleton averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Allen averaged 5.1 yards per carry. So overall, pretty good there. No major explosive plays, but kind of kept the offense on schedule. And they didn't really need explosive plays because of what Drew was doing. So offensively, pretty good. What were your thoughts on the defense? Because right through 3.5 quarters and when the normal rotation was in, they had only given up 7 points, but maybe not their best game.
No, before I get to that, I just want to shout out to everyone who's watching this on YouTube for the Voice of College Football channel or on BlackShoeDiaries.com where we've got this posted. Something new we're trying out here. Hopefully we get more views as a result of that. So thank you very much. And be sure we have a Discord channel. If you subscribe to the Mark Rogers Patreon, the address for that is patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. You'll see it scrolling along the banner down there at some point. So throw that out there. Also, just the comments, I realize you're making football references, but, let's just say anything that mentions Sandusky is going to get you into timeout. So please, folks, none of that. Going to step off my soapbox now and talk about the defense. It was a little, Let's say maybe not their flashiest nights. They didn't have any fumbles or interceptions. They only got 3 sacks. At times, the defensive tackles especially seem to get worked by West Virginia's offensive line. Which, in fairness, that's probably the biggest strength of this West Virginia team. They returned a lot of experience and talent there. But they were also able to run the ball at times. Although, look at the stats, though, they were only averaging about 3 yards per carry, so it's not like they were running hog wild necessarily. But it definitely was a little annoying to see them get West Virginia in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, only for their quarterback Garrett Green to scramble out of trouble and pick up the first down with his legs. Of course, we've been on this other side of that with Trace McSorley doing such things, but it's definitely annoying when the opponent does those things. But to the defense's credit, they only give up 7 points. The first team only give up 7 points. They give up 15, I know, overall, but the second team defense gave up that fourth quarter touchdown. So, overall, not a bad night. They've had better, but end of the day, you look at the scoreboard. They held West Virginia about to where I think pretty much everyone on Black Shadari's colleagues were predicting. Like I said 38-10 Penn State. Others, I think they had West Virginia scoring anything between 10 and 17. So they just about held them in check. But yeah, I'll say Abdul Carter, obviously is happy to get the win, but from
I was going to ask about him.
Individual standpoint, that's probably a night he would like to forget. I still remember him. There's one play that sticks out where he's supposed to be spying on Green. It's like the 3rd and long. He's Green scrambling. Abdul's coming at him, and he just whiffs. I mean, it was just very uncharacteristic of him to whiff like that. So not his best night, but again,
sorry, not to cut you off, but without looking it up, and maybe you already know this, how many tackles did Abdul Carter have tonight? How many can you remember?
Can I remember? I think he had the sack on a 4th down trick play that
was his only tackle.
That was his only
backup quarterback.
Yeah,
which was a fantastic play, right? But yeah, I think a lot of us, myself included, were really beating the Abdul Carter drum, and it just didn't feel like he, like you said, a game that you kind of, I imagine that he'll want to forget. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out as you were bringing up Abdul Carter, not to cut you off, but
yeah. Well, Jackson, I don't know if you watched the beginning of the show, but we thought Drew Allar was totally awesome.
We can talk about it again.
And I'm sure we can keep talking about it, actually, if you want. I'm sure we'll talk about it again before the show's up. But in the meantime, we're still talking about the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry, but I just echo your sentiments defensively. I wrote in my recap kind of that it was, despite, they had, I think, 3 4th down stops that were really big and kind of stopping momentum for West Virginia, but not too many 3 and outs. I want to say 1, maybe 2 3 and outs that I can recall without looking at the stats. And just not a lack of flash plays, right? No interceptions, no forced fumbles, only 3 sacks. It felt like that they were in position a lot of the time, especially, in the run game where they could have stopped West Virginia for, no gain or 1 yard or 2 yards, and West Virginia kind of, be able to get 4 or 5 yards out of it. I thought the linebacker, once again, I have to go back and look at it. I kind of really dislike having to come on here and give takes about these players when, I feel like, rewatching the game kind of gives you a better sense, especially with, writing a recap and tweeting about it and everything. It's hard to really see everything the way that you want to. But I thought the linebackers took a lot of really bad angles, and maybe that was just really good West Virginia play calls where they were able to kind of run away from wherever the pressure was coming from. But yeah, it felt like there were just one too many holes there. But like you were saying, overall Penn State did a pretty good job. West Virginia only averaged 3.7 yards per carry, and a lot of that was Garrett Green, just on broken plays. Like you said, kind of making linebackers miss when he got them one-on-one in space on a broken play or something like that. So yeah, you can't complain too much. Although, do you feel better or worse about West Virginia? Like going into this game, I think there was a big belief that they're not a bowl team, and probably Neil Brown will get fired. And if they can get to 7-5, it'd be a bit of a surprise, or even 6-6. Do you think differently about West Virginia versus kind of going into the game, or do you think they were kind of who we thought they were?
Well, yeah, you kind of got to my next point. I was going to give props to West Virginia. They were not phased really by that environment at Beaver Stadium. Some other teams may have been. Like, I still think about last year's whiteout where Minnesota false started 5 times. Like, I can't recall one false start penalty from West Virginia tonight. I mean, they were
Yeah,
pretty poor. I mean, no really dumb penalties either. Um, at least not on offense. But like it, Garrett Green looked poised out there, and CJ Donaldson. I mean, guy's a wrecking ball.
yeah,
He's
he's
tough
a big boy.
to bring down. He's gonna, I'm sure he's gonna have some monster games for them going forwards. I think defensively, maybe they were a little better than thought they might be. We'll see. I think they're a little better than I thought they would be coming into this. And I'm not saying that Neil Brown's gonna win enough to save his job. I don't know how many wins it's gonna take. I'm thinking probably is at least get to a bowl game and probably win that and get a winning record to keep his job. But I'll let the West Virginia folks talk about that. But I definitely have a little bit of higher opinion about West Virginia after the way they came in tonight to Happy Valley. First game of the year, an embattled coach, in that raucous environment. You started, you have, I guess Garrett Green started a few games last year, but, he hasn't been in an environment like this. And, neither of the other guys, you can pump in all, I think Todd Blackwood said it on the broadcast tonight on NBC, but like, you can pump in all the noise you want in practice, but until you're there, you hear that natural noise. Like it just hits differently. But kudos to them on how they came out. I think they might have a better shot than I maybe thought going into tonight about maybe getting a winning record.
Yeah, I think they were a bit limited, especially offensively with their skill position guys. Devin Carter, obviously a wide receiver, is a pretty good player. Garrett Green, as a quarterback, he's a gamer. I'll give him that, but I don't think he's winning a lot of games. And CJ Johnson's obviously a pretty good running back, but yeah, they just kind of lack that pop, especially as we saw, as they were kind of gaining yards here and there, but to sustain that for the long drives that Penn State was kind of making them sustain that. Trying to think, so they had that long bomb to Devin Carter for 37 yards,
which was
than that, a bit of a broken play,
busted coverage. I mean, kind of, I don't know what happened there. So, some miscommunication, which that was not. That was kind of an ugly looking long ball too. I mean, it just hung in the air forever. But since there was like a brain fart in the secondary, I mean, Carter was wide open to catch that. But I mean, if that doesn't happen, if there isn't that miscommunication, I mean, West Virginia may have very well been facing the prospect of a shutout going into the fourth quarter. That.
Yeah, and they just lack those explosive plays, which James Franklin talks about a lot. Offensively are so important, and obviously defensively, it's right limiting those explosive plays. Right, make a team go 12 plays, 13 plays, 14, etc. plays consistently to beat you, because it's really hard to do. And I think CJ Donaldson's 17-yard run came in the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly. It was on that, I think, 2nd and 20 or 1st and 20. And obviously that Devin Carter long bomb was kind of a broken coverage. So Penn State, I think they did a pretty good job of having a more conservative game plan going into this game. Disappointed in the defensive ends. I feel like we touted them up a lot, and it's one game, right? But I thought Chop Robinson didn't have his best night. Adisa Isaac was maybe a little bit better, but not too great. I thought the ninth and Sutton, I thought he would look a little bit more explosive. I thought he looked a little stiff and was playing a little bit high at times. So yeah, I just feel like Penn State, Manny Diaz obviously likes to bring the blitz a lot, but just to generate pass rush with the defensive line, I feel like they, struggled a little bit more than you were hoping for in this game. But first
Yeah,
game, so
but to be fair, it seemed like Chop, especially there were a few times where it seemed like he was being held, and they weren't flagging it. So I don't know. It seemed like there were some times where they could have gotten a sack if they weren't being held. But in general, yeah, I agree. It wasn't there. They've had better nights, and I think they could start hitting their stride as the season progresses. I'm not going to start panicking after one game, especially given how I said before, offensive line is West Virginia's biggest strength, that and their running game. So, but like I say, we'd like to see them do a little more. But hopefully they'll feast on Delaware next week. I don't think that's going to be quite as daunting. And then, of course, you got Illinois 2 weeks after that, which will probably be another test for them, given how they like to pound the rock.
they struggled with Toledo today. They won 30-28 tonight. And I believe that they were down. Yeah, they were down 12-7 at halftime. So not ideal start for Illinois. But yeah, I feel like as Penn State fans, we know that Illinois game is going to be gross and disgusting, and we're going to leave it and be like, that was a terrible experience. Neil Brown asked about Penn State going for it on fourth down, but hurrying to score in the final seconds. This is a tweet from Chris Anderson at CM Anderson 24/7. I wouldn't have done it, Brown says, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. What comes around goes around. At some point, it'll come back around. So that is an interesting take. What do you feel about that? I will say, I kind of understand like the argument of, well, West Virginia just tried. It was only a 2-possession game. It wasn't like a complete blowout. 2-possession game. You just went for an onside kick. You were taking timeouts before that. So I kind of understand Penn State being like, we're going to play it out till the clock hits 0. I would have to go back and look. Cause I won't lie. I wasn't paying that close attention. Were they really like hurrying it up? I feel like they were just kind of, yeah, it's fourth down. Instead of kicking a field goal, we're just going to run the clock down and we'll try to go for it.
Well, they had gotten a first down with, once we had timeouts, they got a first down with like, I think about 1:25 to go. It was like less than a minute and a half to go. I mean, it's enough. Yeah. It was enough where they could have just taken basically 2 knees and game's over. They didn't have to run another play, but they decided to anyway, just, run it a couple times. I think they ran with Trey Potts try to run a sweep of Potts, which got stopped. And then last play, Bo Previlla just kind of follows his blockers and just, into the end zone. So I was surprised I thought Frank was going to take knees because, he's putting his backups in when they're up 16. It didn't seem like he cared all that much about satisfying the gamblers. But like you said, Pat, maybe before we hit record on this, you suggesting maybe his wife has like a FanDuel account.
Yeah. Might have to check the FanDuel records for like a Fumi Franklin at gmail.com sign up earlier tonight or something. I don't know. But yeah. I just thought it was interesting. I don't know. I honestly don't. I mean, other than Michigan State 2015 when they were running their center at running back and stiff arming Jessica Binda into the grounds, I can't really recall like Penn State being in a situation where, I guess like Michigan last year, but I don't know if they really ran up the score. I don't know. I guess I just don't greatly care about the running up the score thing. Like I didn't feel like it was that bad, but I don't know. Franklin obviously rubs people the wrong way, and if West Virginia fans are, a little, it was a bit unnecessary. That's all I'll say. Kind of like you were saying. I guess they could have just taken the knee, but yeah, also 38 looks a lot better than 31. So I get it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I think it was me. I probably would have told him to take a couple knees, but I guess yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not James.
I'm gonna fire some names at you, and I want you to. I mean, I won't actually do an actual word count, but like 30 words or less. Describe your thoughts. Bo Previlla.
Trace McSorley lookalike.
Right down to the hair. He has the hairline that goes super low, like gets all scraggly down there. Yeah, he was fun.
Jersey number.
Jersey number 2, yeah, I guess that more so than the hair, but yeah, it felt good watching an under. I mean, I guess it's not that undersized, but a number 9 quarterback just plowing his way into the end zone. It's been a while since we've seen that. Trey Potts, what do you think about Trey Potts? I mean, it was garbage
Yeah,
time, but
I mean, it's a nice addition. Good insurance policy in case something happens to Singleton or Allen. You got a guy who's a Big Ten veteran, was a backup running back at Minnesota when Mo Ibrahim was there. It's definitely a big coup to get him to come to Happy Valley and be willing to be that number 3 back in the rotation. I mean, I'm sure he could have gone somewhere else and maybe been the starter, maybe some G5 program or something. But, he is a Williamsport kid. So I think for him, maybe he wanted to play his last year or two closer to home.
he
And
has got a
so,
nice little car from I think somewhere local. I imagine that, right? The Williamsport thing kind of helps with like NIL deals and stuff like that, even if it's
oh, I'm
just a
sure.
leasing
Yeah.
car. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps too.
Kalen King, 30 words or less. Trey Potts went a little over 30 words, I think.
That's true.
Kalen
Yeah.
King.
I think those are still playing a 30 words or less game. Kalen
Oh, we're
King,
still.
like a glove. Nothing.
I don't even, other than he made some tackles, like came up and run support. Did they throw at him? I really don't remember.
They threw at him, I think, once or twice from what I remember.
Yeah.
And of course, King made sure that didn't get anywhere close to the receiver's hands. So
Jaden Reed.
Jalen Reed, he's like a missile. He comes in and he's going to come in and blow up your screen passes.
I love the blonde dread box. That's a great look.
That is a nice touch. I
haven't played Madden in a while, but you could change their color to blonde, and I would do that quite frequently. Who was I gonna say? Tyler Elsdon. What are
our I'll try to be as polite as possible, but
he played more than I expected. Yeah, he played more than I expected, but I would also say, what were your thoughts on Kobe King? I'll just say, I wasn't as impressed with Kobe King as some of the tea leaves coming out of camp, that he was the most consistent linebacker, and for parts of the time looked at like he was the best linebacker. But what did you think of Kobe King tonight?
I really didn't pay much attention to Kobe King tonight, so I couldn't really tell you. But maybe that's but that's probably your answer. He just didn't really do. Wasn't a liability, but also, wasn't the beast that it sounded like he was in fall camp. Now, of course, this is only game 1. I don't want to try to extrapolate over the course of an entire season because, guys can always get better over the course of the season. Others may not live with expectations, but or I mean, I guess not, but others could disappear down the stretch. You don't know. But would like to see a little more out of him, and maybe we will going forward. It'd be nice if they could. I don't know. If they could somehow figure out a better backup than Tyler Elsdon. It's just anytime he's in there running linebacker, you kind of hold your breath. The other team doesn't figure out that he's like the weakest link in the linebacking core.
Yeah, he seems a bit limited. I feel like I don't have any proof behind this. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like he has small, short arms. Like he doesn't have, obviously, someone like Abdul Carter is much bigger and has longer arms, I'm sure, but it feels like Elsdon just doesn't wrap up the way that the other guys do. I also, once again, this is probably one of those things, once you go back and look at the snaps, they maybe played 6 snaps together, but didn't feel like Tyler Elsdon and Don DeLuca were on the field together a lot, which just feels a little limited, athletically. But I don't know. Not to harbor on, to play that maybe wasn't that great. But yeah, I think this was I don't know if I asked this before. What grade overall, right? You're going to do position grades, but overall for the team, what grade are you giving?
Oh, overall? Yeah.
As a whole.
Interesting. I don't typically, I've never done like an overall team grade in my position grades, but if I had to overall grade for tonight, I would say B plus. B
Yeah,
plus.
I go
B
more
plus maybe.
B minus, but probably
B.
B. But sorry, go ahead.
I guess B. Yeah, B or B. B minus might be a little harsh. I mean, I know obviously special teams was struggled, and then defense, didn't have his best night. But the offense. I mean, it was hard to complain too much about the offense. I mean, really not much to complain about it, frankly. Besides,
Almost
O-line
500
could have looked
yards.
a little better, but when you rack up, how many yards did they rack? I got the box
I think it
score up.
was it's just under 500, I believe. It was
Yeah, I mean,
478.
470. Yeah, I mean, you put up 470 yards of offense. I mean, you had 332 for the air, 146 rushing. I mean, you know, see, I can't put it any lower than a B because of that.
Yeah.
So I think B would be a B plus. So that would be if I was to do an overall grade. But yeah, I mean, I made some notes in my phone about what grades I'm going to give the positions. So it's just a matter of me writing out. Maybe some of them will change when I think about it some more, but either for good or for worse. But yeah, I'd say it's about a B plus performance
I think
tonight.
B's about right. They certainly looked better in the in the second half. They scored 24 points in the second half compared to the 14 in the first half, and obviously left some points on the board in the first half of those missed field goals. I think we probably feel a little bit differently about that game and just kind of the momentum of that first half if those field goals go in and you go up 20-7. Yeah, I just I think a lot of us, right? What was you said 35-10 for your score prediction, right?
48-10.
38-10. Okay, so you were very close. Wow.
I was on the
Even
money with
38.
Penn State score. I didn't picture West Virginia scoring a second touchdown and then doing a little ring around the rosy 2-point conversion. So
that was, I mean, the Chiefs do it. It's cool. Other teams do it.
I never
I don't
seen
really
a team
understand the
do
point.
that.
Yeah, in college. I mean, I imagine we're going to start seeing a lot since the Chiefs did it. But hey, I guess it worked. They did a show pass, which is also a Chiefs go too. Um, yeah, I just think I don't even remember what my final score ended up being. I think maybe I did like 38-13, or maybe I did 38-7 or
You know
35-7. I
what?
don't know.
Let me let's see. Let me go
You can
pull
check. You can check while I ramble, but it probably was the game that you think, right? That West Virginia was a legitimate. They're a Power Five team, probably a slightly better than some of us were giving them credit for. And I think for Penn State, right, you forget that this was the first game of the season. How many teams are coming into week one and firing on all cylinders, right? The D line, the linebackers, the safeties, cornerbacks, all working in sync, and the offensive line has perfect communication and things like that. Penn State also had a couple injuries, or I don't know if they're injuries or just suspensions. Just guys that were inactive. Keziah Izzard, who was going to see big minutes or big snaps at defensive tackle. I mean, Vanover, who's a backup defensive end, probably DN4, DN5, certainly would have seen snaps tonight. And they're starting nickelback, DeQuan Hardy. So, a couple, I don't want to say super major pieces, but certainly pieces that were out. But it was probably the type of game that you expect, right? I wrote in my recap that some good in the beginning, some iffy moments in the middle, and then a team that pulled away at the end. So I guess all in all, you can't complain too much.
Yeah. By the way, you predicted 34-7, Pat. So you were
34-7.
fairly close too.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in that. I think a couple of people around the interwebs had Penn State, maybe higher in the 40s, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw. Let's see. So 48-14, 35-10, 31-13, 31-10, 42-10, 34-7, 38-10, 31-13. Ellie, of course, always says 56-17 Penn State, so ignore that. But and Jared in his separate preview at 35-13 Penn State. So yeah, we're all pretty much predicting around similar range, and it basically came to fruition. And I was thinking this. I don't know if I told anybody, but I remember thinking when I was making that prediction, like it wouldn't surprise me if this was a close game at halftime, and then Penn State just late third quarter starts just grinding them down, pulling away, and that's essentially what happened. Of course, I was to say I wasn't a little on edge, about missing those 2 field goals, and frankly, they probably should have finished one of those drives in the end zone with the way they were moving the ball. It could have been like 28-7 best case scenario, but at least, worst case should have been 20-7 at the half, and you're feeling okay enough, especially because Penn State gets the ball to start second half. But what Pat, was that kind of what were your expectations? Like, do you think this is a game Penn State was gonna be running away with at halftime, or do you think it was going to take them maybe 3 quarters to?
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth. I think, as the summer went on and in the lead up, I was, thinking that it was a blowout, but then right as it gets closer, you kind of think of it more. And I think Brian Bennett, one of our writers at BSD, he made a good point in his prediction that he kind of expected it to be, 2017 Pitt-esque, where Penn State comes out, they're fire it up on all cylinders, get an interception, score real quickly, they go up 14-0 like that, and then they end up only winning 33-14. And even at the end in that game, right, Pitt was driving to kind of make it like a 33-21 game to make the score look closer than it was. So I guess I kind of expected that, where I thought that they would see some big explosive plays early, kind of like we saw with Keandre Lambert-Smith. But right, Penn State was up 7-0, and then it was tied 7-7. Then they went up 14-7. So I guess I thought that they would get out to a slightly more comfortable lead in the first and second quarter, and then kind of have the game that they ended up having, where it was a little tight towards the middle, or some iffy moments. So yeah, when you predict these scores, you like to think that everything's just going to flow so naturally, where it's like, oh, Penn State's up 14-7. Now they're up 28-14. Now they're up 42-14. But how often does that actually happen in football and in sports in general? So, yeah, I think, expectation wise, it probably was what we should have expected in first game. So it's something to definitely build on. And like you mentioned earlier, it's beautiful that we get FCS Delaware coming into Beaver Stadium next week, which is going to be hopefully less stressful of a game. Although tonight wasn't that stressful. Was there ever a point where you thought Penn State was going to lose tonight? Right? Because it was 14-7 going into the half. It was a one-score game for, a good portion of the game. Did you ever think, this could get kind of bad?
I don't think I thought they were going to lose. Maybe the part of me had thought, if that defense doesn't, I was hoping, hopefully I was even thinking that hopefully the defense makes some adjustments at halftime so West Virginia doesn't, score again, get a touchdown, and then really, keep putting the pressure on Penn State to respond, and just keep it a game going into the fourth quarter. But no, I don't think I ever got the sinking feeling like in maybe games like the past year or two. I guess my mom was going to go back to like Illinois 2 years ago, but I never got some sinking feeling that like, oh my God, we might actually like blow this game. The offense they were moving the ball well. They just, obviously they weren't quite finishing, and they were, field goal kicking was an adventure. So, yeah, you make those field goals, I'm probably feeling a lot better at halftime than I was. But I also remember just my initial thoughts and how the game would play out in my head, and I wasn't too worried. But it's one of those things where I was hoping Penn State maybe would score in its opening drive of the half. They didn't do that, but then the defense came out and forced a 3-and-out, I believe, and then they took the next drive for a touchdown, if I'm recalling correctly, without looking up the play-by-play tracker on CBS or ESPN, but that's kind of how it played out. And yeah, he's kind of kept waiting for Penn State to take the kill shot, step on their throats, and it eventually happened. Maybe it took a little bit longer than we would have liked, but I guess no, I don't think there was ever a point where I was truly afraid that West Virginia was going to somehow steal the win, pull the upsets. So I don't know. What about you, Pat?
No, there was a point when it was, obviously when it was 14-17, I wasn't feeling great about it, but it was kind of hard to watch how Drew was playing and, just how Penn State was playing in general versus, Garrett Green and West Virginia, that Penn State would lose that game. West Virginia obviously had their chances though. They, 3 4 downs, but all on Penn State side of the field, I believe, that they could have, convert that were definitely convertible. I think the longest one was a 4th and 7. So definitely could have been a closer game than it looked. I thought that, and once again, I would have to go back and look. They were down 21-7, and they went for it on 4th and 7 when they could have had a somewhat makeable field goal. I don't think it would have been. It would have been maybe around like the 40-yard range to make it 21-10. I'm not sure about their kicking situation. Maybe it's like Penn State's, and they just didn't have too much faith in them. But I thought, and that was in the third quarter. Why not? Try to keep that momentum. But I also understand, West Virginia's kind of point of view on that. That hey, we're here. Might as well just go for it. Tim, I'm going to read off some former Penn State quarterbacks debuts, and we'll see if you can. This might be a running theme for me that I'm just going to randomly ask you trivia and see if you can figure it out without giving you any heads up. So tonight's game is going to be other Penn State quarterback debuts, and let's see if you can guess who it was. This quarterback, and this is all 21st century. I'm not going to throw
you got to specify.
John Schaefer.
Okay.
Chuck
I won't be
Piscina.
trying to guess Kerry Collins or Wally Richardson right now.
No, all within recent recent times. We'll do 3 of them.
Century. All right.
This quarterback went 11 for 14 for 146 yards and 1 touchdown. And I can give you a hint. Penn State won 66-10. Which, man.
That was Daryl Clark.
That was Daryl Clark. Coastal
That's
Carolina, very good. This quarterback went 14 of 23 for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. I will not read you the score today.
Yeah, okay.
It's a dead giveaway.
14 of 23 for how much?
280.
280 and 3 touchdowns?
2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
No intercept. Okay. This is from the 2000s.
And QBR of 29. It seems a little bit low, but I don't know. Maybe something's off with ESPN's graphics.
20,
or data.
3 touchdowns. Okay, I gotta think about this one.
5 seconds.
I'm gonna say, Anthony Morelli?
No, Sean Clifford. Anthony Morelli is a good guess. Sean Clifford against Idaho, 79-7. How beautiful that game was. That was about no frets at all. Last one, 16 of 31 for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Who was this quarterback?
I'm going to say Michael Robinson.
It was not Michael Robinson, although that definitely sounds like a Michael Robinson stat line, especially in the 16-31 part. Trace McSorley against Kent State in 2016, 33-13. Yes. So Drew is in, right? I'd have to look at Bolden and Morelli and what those guys did. But yeah, certainly. I mean, Bolden, from what I remember, he had a pretty good debut. I want to say it was against Youngstown State, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm off on that. But I think Drew is in pretty elite company when it comes to his debut. So 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. What a guy. He's our quarterback. He is it. He is him. He has a dog in him. He is beautiful. I thought he was going to run a little bit more. He only had the sacks kind of took that away, but I believe he only had 1 yard, so that was a little disappointing. I thought he would look a little bit faster, but
yeah, I mean he's still more mobile than people give him credit for. Obviously, no one's going to mistake him for Sean Clifford as far as running is concerned, but that's not his specialty. I mean, he's definitely got better, I think, pocket awareness and just mobility within the pocket and ability to just like keep his eyes downfield and obviously just the arm. I mean, it's obviously no disrespect to Cliff, but it's just head and shoulders above what we've had the previous 4 years. Well, really, I mean, Trace too. I mean, pretty much. I mean, I tell you, I get Kerry Collins vibes from Drew Allar. I'm gonna come out and say it. Just I'm old enough to remember. My first year I started going to Penn State games was 1994. I was 10 years old. I know I'm spoiled. That was the very first season I got season tickets.
First season of my life was 1994. For the record, I was born December 1993. So first actual full Penn State season was 94. So it's been all downhill. It has been all downhill from there.
Yeah, I was spoiled to say, like, but that off. I mean, yeah, Kerry Collins just had an absolute like rocket of an arm, and a bevy of weapons to throw to as well. So it's, I get those kinds of vibes out of Drew. So
Yeah,
it's
no, it's especially once again. I don't mean to take shots at Sean Clifford here. He served Penn State very well. Walked off with the Rose Bowl championship.
that was Marty's
Uh,
fault when he was on here.
yeah, I'm not here to be Marty 2.0. But yeah, it's different looking at Penn State and being like, okay, quarterback feels pretty good, and that doesn't mean right. We're not saying that it's not going to be an issue or that Drew's not going to have his mishaps because I think he certainly will be. But as far as what you're hoping for a quarterback who can take you to the next level, he showed it tonight, and like I put in my recap, right? All these games are kind of going to be tests as we lead up to right the big exams, right? Michigan and Ohio State. But tonight, I mean, passed with absolute flying colors. You can't be happier about what he showed. So I know
No,
I think at this point we're
absolutely.
just repeating ourselves with with the Drew love,
Yeah,
but he's
I
just
mean, it was that good. We're gonna keep repeating ourselves over the course of this show here. But just want to get this in. Thank you, Jackson.
very good. Yes, thank you.
Stars.com for all your Penn State football coverage and Penn State sports in general. It obviously hasn't, we're in September, but in another, couple months before you know it, will be starting wrestling season. We have great wrestling writers on the site. Basketball, lots of intrigue over the new head coach Mike Rhodes and how he's essentially rebuilt this entire team for the transfer portal. He's got some dudes, and then of course hockey. We've just recently hired someone to actually write about hockey for us again. So be exciting to have someone cover hockey in a more detailed basis. So we also cover those sports too. So it's not just football. Of course, it's our bread and butter. But Patrick, you got you just did your recap. You got several other posts you kind of do throughout the week, I believe. Like I'll have my position grades up tomorrow. Then Monday I'll have a turning point segment, which is basically I pick a play or moment from the game where the momentum shifted permanently, like in Penn State, or if it's a loss in the opponent's favor. So I'll have to kind of sit back and think about what that moment was, but we'll have something up in that on Monday. So, Pat, what else do you do besides write about do the recap?
Yeah, so I do Tuesdays. I'll be doing random thoughts. So it's just going to be depends upon the game, but probably 30 to 700 random thoughts. This one might go a little bit long because I will talk about Drew Lore for 75% of it. Wednesday, still figuring out what I'm going to do Wednesday. Last year it was two things I liked, two things I didn't like, but I think I might kind of switch that up and make that more of like more of a preview. Not that I won't talk about the previous game, but more like a big picture thing rather than just talking specifically about the Indiana or the not the Indiana game. Goodness gracious, West Virginia game. And then yeah, a couple other things throughout the season. If we're fortunate enough, I'll be writing about basically a rooting guide who you should be rooting for. That best helps Penn State make a Rose Bowl or make a hopefully college football playoff. And then doing bold predictions on Fridays. So 3 different bold predictions, maybe more, definitely not less than 3, perhaps more than 3 for specifically bigger games or games that I feel more strongly about. But yeah, so yeah, definitely check out blackshoediaries.com. We got multiple stories coming out every single day, and you can see our unique view on Penn State football and Penn State athletics in general. And you mentioned basketball. I do want to read Jalen Pickett's, obviously Penn State basketball great. His 2 tweets from tonight at 7:50 p.m. He tweeted Drew with 4 exclamation points, and then his next tweet was at 9:41, and it was Drew with, I think this is 5 exclamation points. So I would like to echo Jalen Pickett's thoughts on his Drew take of Drew. So that was beautiful.
Future NBA champion Jalen Pickett.
Yes,
being on the Denver Nuggets.
Denver Nugget. Do you have any more Penn State thoughts? If not, I wouldn't mind a quick run around the country. Mostly, I just want to talk about Kyle McCord and Ohio State this week.
Yeah, we're gonna do a. I was gonna do a quick. We're gonna do a quick like around the Big Ten sort of thing. So you sort of beat me to it. Really, my my. I don't have other thoughts. I mean, just Drew Allar was good as advertised, perhaps even a little better than advertised. Frankly, I mean, I did not see him going over 300 yards passing tonight because I thought maybe Singleton and Allen would rack up a little more yardage in the rushing game. But they frankly they didn't need to do much when Drew was slinging it across the yard the way he was. So it's nice. Obviously, some things to clean up defensively and especially on special teams, but it is game one, so and you got Delaware next week. So that's a good like get right game before you get a tough nooner on the road at Illinois in 2 weeks from now. So but those are my final thoughts. If you want to, I guess we can go around the country, go around the Big Ten. Obviously, you talk about Ohio State, Pat. The Kyle McCord era was kind of
It's a
meh.
shame to see. It's a shame. Can you imagine rooting for Kyle McCord? Sorry, not to cut you off, Tim, but I just have a lot of thoughts about this.
No, you're
Kyle McCord, 20 of 33 for 239 yards, no passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns either, for the record. 1 interception. Can you imagine having a quarterback that doesn't throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in their starting debut? Because it couldn't be me. Ohio State wins a game 23-3. Their offense looks a little whatever throughout the entire game. They scored 7 points in the first quarter, 3 in the second quarter, 10 in the third quarter, and 3 in the fourth quarter. Man, I don't want to say it looked like a Joe Paterno coach team to me. I don't know if Ryan Day is losing it or what's going on, but yeah, I think
it's
still
also
great.
game one, so
Indiana might not be that bad either, as far as I think defensively.
it's also game one, Pat. Like I'm sure McCord will improve as the season goes on.
Nope.
Of course, remember, Penn State doesn't play them. They play them in Columbus, and they don't play them until late October. Like it's
Drew's home turf.
Early mid-season.
Drew's home turf. You have to think about it.
Kyle McCord is home turf. I mean, I think Drew could have a hell of a game, but I mean, also, how's the defense going to hold up against it? Granted, I think their offensive line, they seem to have some issues there. It kind of showed today against Indiana. I mean, and frankly, I mean, I'm sure Indiana seems improved defensively, but I don't know how much that's because Ohio State's offensive line is not good, or is because Indiana actually got better. But man,
yes.
that Indiana offense, man, yikes!
Their quarterbacks were 9 of 21 for 82 yards. 9 of 21 for 82 yards. So, not.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how their offense is going to play against teams of a pulse, Tom Allen's probably getting fired by the end of the year.
But I just want to point out real quick. You said that Ohio State could get better. That's not true. So how it works? Let me just explain something. How it works? Penn State, if we don't play well, we can improve, right? The offensive line will improve. The defense, Alvin Carter, he'll play better. But when Ohio State struggles, that means Ryan Day's on the hot seat. So just wanted to clear it up real quick. Ohio State cannot get better. Penn State can get better. So it will likely be a blowout in Columbus. Ohio State is in third place when it comes to offensive line people, maybe fourth in QB play. I agree, Matthew Kraft. I agree. And honestly, I think you're being a little generous with fourth in QB play. I think that they might be last. I think that even Indiana's quarterbacks are better than Kyle McCord. So I'm interested to see what the voters do for Ohio State. Not that votes and rankings really matter now, but they were ranked number 3 coming into this game, and I don't know. You're
gonna get knocked down at Peg or so. I mean, depending on how other teams do, I haven't followed the rest of the top 25 that closely yet, but they could get bumped down a spot or two because of this, lackluster performance. I'm surprised Devin Brown didn't get as much run. I mean, granted stat line 1 for 3 for -2 yards passing, but you got to think at some point he's going to get more run if McCord doesn't start improving some. But I mean, not my problem. I hope they still haven't figured it out by the time Penn State comes.
They won't. They won't. They can't get better. I feel like they're not grasping that, Tim. Um,
Actually, they got that Notre Dame game looming 3 weeks from now, Pat.
ooh, yeah.
You got to think Marcus Freeman's and that staff are licking their chops. And we'll
I
see.
forgot that Sam Hartman was at Notre Dame. I know we didn't really talk about Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's kind of like on my peripheral just because, right, we so focus on Big Ten. I had forgotten that Sam Hartman was at Notre Dame, so that kind of does change, what I think that they could potentially be. Because obviously, I mean, Sam Hartman was sometimes hit or miss at Wake Forest, but I think overall really good quarterback, and to see him at a place like Notre Dame where he has a little bit more help, that's an interesting game. That going to into Notre Dame this year will be interesting. Did you watch any of Utah State and Iowa?
I caught glimpses here and there. I mean, I noticed Iowa had a couple quick touchdowns, but it looks like, oh
They
boy,
reverted back
Iowa has
quickly.
an offense now, but then
No.
kind of reverted back. You remembered, oh wait, Brian Ferentz is still calling the shots there, so they were stuck at 14 for quite a while. They also put up 24 points, just 1 point shy of the average needed for Brian Ferentz to keep his job after this season. So they're living on the edge, living on the edge. I'm not thinking too much about that game yet. I want to see how Penn State cleans things up. These next couple weeks before that whiteout game, which if you thought tonight was an insane atmosphere,
Oh yeah.
that's gonna be ratcheted up to 11 because there's some bad blood between Penn State and Iowa now after what happened a couple years ago.
Yeah, we're talking about right. James Franklin doing the hurry up, allegedly doing the hurry up, hurrying to the line to get a touchdown at the end. I can guarantee you that if Penn State has the opportunity, and maybe not, I
Well,
think
he will not
obviously,
he
yeah,
will not
we
hesitate to pull what he did tonight on Kirk Ferentz. I mean,
as yeah,
Teddy James Franklin is probably my
it'll be
favorite
much worse, much
Franklin.
worse. Yeah, it'll be Michigan State 2016 level, but yeah, hopefully we're talking about that in a couple weeks. Any other Big Ten games that stick out to you? I mean, nothing. I mean, Fresno State beat Purdue. I didn't watch too much of that game. Obviously, Purdue has a big turnover from Braun leaving. Wisconsin looked they struggled with Buffalo a little bit, pulled away at the end. Kind of still looked like normal Wisconsin. I thought Tanner Mordecai. I watched a little bit of that game. Tanner Mordecai, a little bit whatever. But any Big Ten thoughts from you?
Big Ten, yeah, I caught a little bit of that Wisconsin game when I guess they got off. I didn't really catch the first half. Got to a slow start, but it seems like obviously it's first game with completely different system in place offensively at least. I'm sure that's a team I'm sure can get better over the course of the season. Luke Fickell's a hell of a coach. I'm sure I have no doubt he's going to make Wisconsin Big Ten contender sooner rather than later up there. And I guess other games, Michigan. From what I didn't really watch much of their game. They beat East Carolina 30-3. JJ McCarthy was impressive throwing the ball, but running game left a little more to be desired. From what I read, message of what on the Penn State message board, who people were watching, I was saying Blake Corum looked slower. Like he still hasn't fully recovered from the AC, whatever. I don't know if it was an ACL tear, but whatever knee issue he had that caused him to miss towards the end of last season. But it's one game. It's hard to put much stock in that. That's still going to be maybe the toughest game on. No, it will be the toughest game on Penn State's schedule.
More like that, yeah.
So I'm not putting much stock in that game. They probably kind of just dilly-dallied around some because they could.
Without Jim Harbaugh as well, which I know, right? People are kind of making fun of, them suspending him for, the easiest games on their schedule. Although I will say East Carolina is not like that bad. They're a solid AAC team that usually can make a bowl game. So not the easiest team in the world, but yeah, I can't say I watched any of this game. The only thing I'll say is JJ McCarthy, 3 touchdowns, but not even 300 yards. Could you imagine, Tim, not having your quarterback throw for 300 yards? Couldn't be us.
No,
Couldn't be us. So
I can't imagine that. Speaking of quarterbacks running 300 yards, Fresno State, Purdue, that was kind of a barn burner at the end. Purdue was down, they score late, but then Fresno State comes right back, scores a go-ahead touchdown, and goes on to win 39-35. That's a game that, I, yeah, I think in one of my pick 'em, like pick against the spread things, I had Fresno State picked here because I wasn't sure what to think of Purdue. New head coach Ryan Walters. They got a good quarterback Hudson Card from transfer from Texas, but just a lot of uncertainty. They see offensively they still seem pretty good, but defensively definitely some work to be done there. But not that Penn State plays these guys, so I'm not thinking about them too much. But that was kind of an entertaining game to watch though at the end.
We
Nebraska.
can end. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say. We can end with Colorado TCU. Did you watch that game?
Oh yeah, that was probably
What
the
a game!
best game of the day. I mean, best non-Penn State game of the day that I watched. Man, I mean, hats off to Coach Prime and the players especially. I mean, Shedeur Sanders 510 yards passing. I mean that's like NCAA video game numbers. I mean that's just insane. And I mean it's a team that I mean they completely overhauled that roster for the transfer portal. So you didn't know what to expect. I mean they got some really talented guys, but there's a lot of talk about, oh, well, they're still going to be soft in the trenches. They're not big. They have talent, good starting talent, but they completely lack depth. So, you're looking at 3-4 win season at best for them. Now, granted, there is now some game tape for opposing coaches to look at so they'll be better prepared defensively on how to attack this team. So I think they're not going to have this much success, like as much as they had today, maybe going forward. But I'll tell you what, if I was a Nebraska fan, I'd be scared crapless about next weekend. Just
Yeah,
given how, I mean, the defense is pretty good against in their season opener, but man, like unless they figure out that passing game in the next week, they're gonna have trouble keeping pace towards the end, scoring
yeah.
wise.
I was quite shocked. I mean, I didn't think TCU would be that good this year. I expected probably you know maybe return to median 8-4, maybe even 7-5. But I took TCU minus 20.5. I did not think that Colorado was going to be that good. And specifically, I did not think Deion's son, Shedeur Sanders, would be that good. He was very good. I mean, people obviously are making the right. You pass for 510 yards and you go 38 of 47 and 4 touchdowns, right? You're going to be usually aided by the defense that you're playing. And Colorado certainly had guys that were wide open, but there were a couple of throws that Shedeur made that were just right on the money and just perfectly placed. But yeah, I kind of, I imagine that Colorado will get a top 25 ranking when the rankings come out on, I guess, Tuesday this week. But I don't know if they are a top 25 team just because, TCU ran for 262 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, which if you're going to give up 7 yards a carry, I think most teams will be able to kind of handle you. But what a win. I mean, if you're a Colorado fan, you have to be cloud
Oh
nine.
yeah,
Yeah.
savor it. 'Cause, I mean, I still think they're gonna end up 3-9, 4-8 ultimately. Just I mean, because like I said, that defense definitely leaves a lot to be desired. Offensively though, thing is when they face it, they're gonna face some teams that are bigger in the trenches and have defenses of a pulse, unlike TCU's. So, those teams, they're kind of I guess it's sort of like a Maryland, they look pretty prolific offensive. They're going up against bad defenses or just teams that don't have much in the trenches. But once they face a team though that's got it's better in the trenches, that's got a defense of a pulse, they tend to get held in check. So that's kind of the vibe I get with Colorado. So, but even 3 to 4 wins. I mean, that's still 3 to 4 times more wins than they had last season. And
And
he's
sorry, I was
creating.
just gonna say, I think. Sorry, we're talking over each other. I think they'll be fun, right? Like even if they're not a winning team, they'll be fun for sure. So
Oh, no doubt. I mean, the fact we're even talking about them right now, I mean,
yeah,
that speaks volumes of what Coach Prime's done there. So, yeah, and on that note, yeah, I think we'll end it there, Pat. Unless you got some final thoughts.
no, I'm all drill lord out. It is 12:33 in the morning here. I'm ready to go. Probably have a nice little dream about Drew throwing touchdown passes. So well, that's where I'm at. But yeah, fun times for Penn State.
Indeed, it's a new era for sure. We're excited to see how it plays out throughout the season. For Tim and Patrick, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with our post game show after the Delaware game, and a little reminder. Right now, Mark Rogers himself is on the Voice College Football channel, is having his live call-in show. It starts at 11:30 every Saturday night. So if you got some, you want to talk up Drew Allar or whatever, if you had a few beers in you, which I'm sure Marty's going to do, it's not like, yeah, just or whatever whatever opinions you got, you can hit up Mark on his live call-in show, and we'll be back, of course, every post game this season. We'll be here doing this live, so stop on by if you enjoy what you like. And of course, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. And, and of course, shout out to all you watching us on blackshoediaries.com. Hope you enjoy this if you've never watched this show before. But anyway, I know it's like 12:30. I don't know what the hell I'm saying anymore. So we're gonna end it here. Good chatting with you as always, Pat. We'll do this again soon. And rest of you, have a good night. Enjoy the rest of week 1.